We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot, season number 4, episode number 16. And I know it's been a minute if you're first time listening. I appreciate the ear. Definitely if you're one of the OGs, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. And we're going to get right into this thing, man, as the holiday season is upon us. Not sure if you guys have started your gift shopping. Definitely is a good time of the year. Hang out with loved ones and so forth. And we're moving on along in the sport landscape. As first and foremost is breaking news. It appears that Bill Belichick will become the next head coach of the University of North Carolina, going down to Chapel Hill. And boy, am I surprised. Boy, am I surprised in that. I mean, that's a situation to where, I consider Bill, if not the best coach of all time, definitely one of the best of all time, arguably in the National Football League. I mean, his resume is impeccable from being defensive coordinator of the New York Giants in the 1980s, moving on to the New England Patriots and winning 6 championships in New England. And it's been a rough stretch for Bill Belichick over the last, say, 12 months or so. Now, obviously, he moved on from the New England Patriots. Him and Robert Kraft decided to part ways. And, we've seen him on television. I love all the entities that I've seen him on television across the tube, with, the little coach show he has with Mike Lombardi. Or, just his job with Pat McAfee as he's been coming through, laying down the law on the football side and his whole entity. So it's been good to see Bill out there in the forefront. It's a lot of people who are, diehard football fans definitely want to get into the insight of Bill Belichick and what he thinks about certain situations. And, most of the talk with Bill, has been, about the National Football League. And so, I'm thinking, man, he's leveraging his way into another situation. Definitely for me, Chicago Bear fan, it was a situation where I wanted Bill to be the next head football coach of the Chicago Bears. I thought we needed a guy with experience. He fit the bill. And this situation with North Carolina came up. Now, there's a relationship with the Belichicks at the University of North Carolina, as his father was the assistant coach on the staff down in North Carolina in the 1950s. And, I think college football has changed a lot. It's turned more to the professional situation. I think that a lot of people think, Bill, he may be too old, 72 years old, but he's sharp as a tack. And I think he proved that being on television and on the internet and the different entities that he's involved in. And I just think that for me, overall, my first thoughts, I actually like it. Now, I think it's shame on the National Football League that, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out there, you got a lot of, football guys, as you would call it, general managers and presidents of these football clubs. I just think that their ego in the way to hire Bill Belichick. I just think that at the end of the day, Bill walks into the room, he's the smartest guy in the room. And so I think that these guys who are in these positions, especially with certain organizations, they walking on eggshells. So, some people don't like bringing in a guy that pretty much has the answers to the test. And I think Bill Belichick has the answers to the test. And I think for the situation in North Carolina, because the landscape of college football has changed tremendously over the last 3 years, I think it's a professional type of situation. Now, you had a lot of people saying, man, this University of North Carolina is not a blue blood, or, big time program. And I'm like, that's what Bill want. That's what Bill want. Think about it. You add more to your legacy when you take a program that, to me, I consider it a good program. It's not a great program, but it's a good program. One, it's in the South. Two, it's in the ACC, meaning that you don't have to do a lot to be able to get into the college football playoff. All you got to do is win the ACC. You automatically get in, automatic qualify, like the NCAA tournament on the basketball side. And so I just think with all of that, it's just a change of landscape. I think it's a good look, for Bill. I think that he'll definitely get this program moved in the right direction. We're seeing what Deion is doing at Colorado. He inherited a team that won one football game before he got there. I think Bill, from a football program standpoint, is going into a better situation. And so, I see a lot of people, a lot of pundits and so forth just say, man, it's a step down. But I think Belichick likes challenges. And he's done everything that you can possibly do in the National Football League. I mean, he's won championships as a coordinator, also, too, as a head coach. I mean, the man is an institution. And I think at the end of the day, I think he was kind of soured by just across the league, him reaching out and putting fellas out to organizations. And I think that he has an angst against that based on the fact that there's a lot of young guys or younger guys that are younger than him in the National Football League that don't know half of what this guy know. And he know that and they know that. And so I just think that a lot of these football people are just a little jealous of the resume, man. But at the end of the day, he's transitioning over to college football. And speaking of college football, we got the college football playoff is set. All the teams are set. There was a big time argument whether people felt that Alabama should get into the tournament. I don't think they deserve to get into the tournament. I think, first of all, my impressions about the whole chase to the college football playoff, I think it has been great for college football. I mean, you're always going to have the argument, whether it's 12 teams in, 18 teams in. There's always going to be an argument, and that's part of the lure of it. I mean, that's what they want. Because I think at the end of the day, if people feel unanimously they got the 12 teams right, then it wouldn't be any intrigue in it. It'd get stale after a while. So I actually like it and enjoy it. I'm going to break down a little bit later on in the show just, who I think may move on in advance based on the brackets and so forth. So I'm definitely going to get into that science. And can't forget about the National Football League as we're moving towards the playoff race. And there's been some amazing individual feats across the National Football League. Josh Allen has really been on one. A lot of people feel he in pole position to win the MVP award. I believe it's still yet to be determined, even though I would say that Josh is probably the front runner right now. But you can't forget about the tremendous season that Saquon Barkley has had so far this year for the Philadelphia Eagles. And, he's on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record. And this is a record, man, that I think records are meant to be broken. But just looking back on how long this record has been into place, we talking about 1984 and Eric Dickerson and the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, yours truly was in kindergarten when this record was broken. Or the record was set. So that's a long time ago, man. And so if Saquon, to me, if he breaks that record, Philadelphia ends the regular season, in pole position in the NFC, I just think that he has a chance at winning the award. And so a lot of people think it's a quarterback award. I feel like it should go to the most valuable player of the league that season. And so we'll see how that whole race unfolds with the MVP race. We got the, Chiefs. A lot of people, I think they went from a team that America loved to a team that a lot of people in America is kind of getting over with, man. Getting over. But we'll see what the Chiefs do moving forward. We're definitely going to break down what we saw last week in the National Football League and what we got going forward. Also, too, we're going to talk a little NBA as things are moving along in the National Basketball Association. I think one of the tidbits that kind of caught my eye was this whole change to the All-Star game format in the NBA. And I just think that they're one step away from it turning to the NFL and the Pro Bowl situation. I mean, we literally one step away from that at this point, people. Let's go ahead and all face it. And I think that if David Stern was still the commissioner of the National Basketball Association, rest in peace, I think that he would have pulled it. So he would have pulled it by now. Especially when you got, teams basically scoring 300 points in a game. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still some basketball people out here, man, that just want to see a good game of basketball. And even though it's the All-Star game, the expectations are not to go out there like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals. But come on, man. Let's just hoop, man, at the end of the day. So I think that the idea of the little pickup style, I'm really not feeling it right now. I see what it do. But I just think that now it's really turned into a dog and pony show, man. And I think the commissioner, Adam Silver of the NBA, he got a real situation going on in the NBA, especially with guys, having the reputations of getting a big bag of money and don't want to suit up every night. But we'll definitely get into that a little bit more in depth. Also, too, I got my NFL Big 5 power rankings jumping off as we get close to the NFL playoffs. And also, too, man, I may throw my NBA Big 5 in there, man, what I see across the NBA so far this season. So first and foremost, man, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. Coming up the rest of the show, We on Fire Sports Podcast Spots. Welcome back, and we're going to take a look across the National Football League as week number 14 has concluded. And I think that this was a type of week that the teams that most people feel that are going to get into the playoffs and basically jockeying for position to potentially get buys. I think overall as a collective, I think all of those teams definitely handled business. And it started off on last Thursday, with the Packers and the Lions game. As the Green Bay Packers came into that game 9-3, and the Lions came into that game 11-1. It's big time NFC North situation jumping off. And I like what the NFL has done, is put a lot of these what I call rivalry games or divisional games towards the latter part of the year. And I think that this one was a game to where I call this game who got the clout. Because coming in, I think, like most would say, that the Detroit Lions at worst is a top 3 football team in the National Football League. They may be number 1, and we'll check and see if they hit number 1 on my power rankings coming up a little bit later. But to me, this was a test for the Green Bay Packers from a standpoint of you playing a real team. Jordan Love, you got to come out here and play some good, clean football. You guys got to be able to run the football. If that don't happen, I just don't see you guys, beating a team like Detroit. And I thought we got a little bit, especially from the running side, from the Green Bay perspective. I mean, Jacobs had 3 touchdowns in this game. And so, they was able to get the ball down the field and be able to score on the Detroit Lions. But at the end of the day, Matt, Dan Campbell, still the riverboat gambler, going forward, obviously, on that 4th down situation in the 4th quarter where he could have just kicked the field goal and, got that situation over with. I mean, once a gambler, always a gambler. So for me, it was expected. A lot of people made a big time, a little deal over it. But I thought at the end of the day, that's his MO. So I expected him to go forward in that situation. And I think this team is definitely taking on the personality of Dan Campbell and looking like they're the best team in the NFC. I mean, that's debatable between them and the Philadelphia Eagles, who we'll get into a little bit later. But I think that Detroit, this was a big-time win for them. I thought that the Packers, this was a game to where, if they stole this game against Detroit, I think people would be looking at Green Bay as what I call a real Super Bowl contender. And, the Lions was able to pull off this win 34-31. As the Lions improved to 12-1 on the season, Green Bay falls to 9-4 on the season. And I think also, too, a thing that's important, especially from the Lions' perspective, I think of any of the top-notch teams that's, one of the contenders for the buys in either conference, I think for Detroit, home field advantage is the most crucial. I mean, they get a chance to stay inside, stay indoors. I just think that with Jared Goff, we've seen over the last couple of years, he's not the same quarterback in inclement weather. And I'm not saying that's a knock because, if it's cold out there, man, it's going to knock your game down just a little bit. But I just think that for them, I think it'll be very fruitful for them to get to the bye and get, home field advantage through the NFC part of the playoffs. And so we'll see what Detroit does moving forward. I mean, the Packers, it was a big-time, divisional game. They fell up just short. I still was impressed by what I did see with Green Bay. I just don't think that they're at the top tier of what I consider a legitimate Super Bowl contender this season. But we'll definitely see what, both teams do moving forward. Another game that caught my eye, man. I call this, man, the Cousins homecoming, man, as the Atlanta Falcons traveled up to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings. And the Vikings swiftly DDT'd the Atlanta Falcons 42-21. The Vikings improved to 11-2 on the year. Falcons dropped to 6-7 on the year. And both these teams are basically in opposite planes. Minnesota Vikings, they're playing is moving up. I think that this is probably one of the least respected NFL teams I've ever seen in being 11-2 on the year. And I think part of that, though, is that there's some skepticism that it might strike midnight on Sam Darnold. And, I believe, there's a lot of, chatter out there about, Minnesota potentially re-signing Sam Darnold. I think he deserved to be re-signed. I think he deserved to be, paid a nice little coin. I just don't think that Minnesota going to pull the trigger in that situation. They drafted J.J. McCarthy last year, University of Michigan. He went out with the ACL at the early part of the year, out for the season. You bring in, Daniel Jones. And so I just think that they're in a position where they potentially may not want to, break off that bag of coin for Sam Darnold. But, definitely the glass slipper still fits for him. They're in pole position. They still got a shot at getting a bye in the NFC. That could be a real situation. Brian Flores, I like what he's doing on the defensive side. He'll bring the heat when necessary. Kevin O'Connell, to me, is a candidate for Coach of the Year up in Minnesota. He's done a tremendous job. Sam Darnold on the redemption tour. I think Justin Jefferson is finally getting back into being, Justin Jefferson. Caught a touchdown pass in this football game. On the other side for the Atlanta Falcons, man, it's a situation to where I think we're down to once the Atlanta Falcons get virtually eliminated from the playoffs and there's a couple of games left, I think they're going to move on from Kirk Cousins. This was a homecoming game for him. Didn't play well. This is, about a month straight that Kirk Cousins has played like straight hot garbage. I think this is a football team that has talent, but I think that they were Pro Bowl playing caliber quarterback from being at least a playoff team in the NFC South. I thought it was their division to lose, and it looks like it's slipping out of their hands as the Tampa Bay Bucks now in pole position in the NFC South. A lot of people were saying, and I got Falcons. I'm down in the Southeast, so I talked to my Falcon connects, and they already ready to move on from Kirk Cousins. So we'll see what that situation does moving forward. I think Raheem Morris, he in a situation to where he got to roll up the sleeves, man. The Falcons still have an opportunity to win the NFC South and get into the playoffs, but I think that for them, they're at a point now where it's week to week for them. Definitely the playoff starts now for the Atlanta Falcons. We'll see what they do moving forward, but that definitely was an interesting game. I want to get into. And another game, man, that caught, to me, I thought had the potential to be the game of the week, and boy, was it. Between the Los Angeles Rams and the Buffalo Bills, straight shootout style, straight Josh Allen with the cape, straight the Rams just ain't going. Man, this was a great game to watch. Josh Allen, like I said, man, he put on the cape. He did all what he could do. You had, some iffy coaching decisions from the Buffalo side, towards the end of this football game. But I think at the end of the day, the Rams, man, they know that their season is week to week. And Sean McVay, I said it a couple shows ago. This is a guy that when the situation gets tight, he gonna scheme up. And I just think that the Rams, they do a great job creatively on the offensive side to where even though they may not have, 40-point games each and every week, they got the potential to do so. I think to me, the weak link for this football team is on the defensive side. Obviously they gave up a 40-piece as well in this football game, but, they week to week and they're a team that can get hot. I'm not saying I'm going to put them as a bona fide, championship, contending team out of the NFC, but they're definitely a dangerous team. They proved that by knocking off the Buffalo Bills. For the Bills, man, and just the AFC as a whole, I just think that we not going to see who them guys is until we get to the playoffs. Because I think that the Chiefs, obviously, if you look at the record, you think it's typical Chiefs. But they're not playing good football to me. They playing survival football, which I took my cap to them, being two-time defending world champions. I'm put some respect on their name, but I don't think they playing their best football, and I think even Chiefs fans understand that, man. So, I think for them, for Buffalo and just that whole situation in the AFC, can't forget about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the job that Mike Tomlin has done for the Steelers. They've been on one. I think that situation with George Pickens, he's kind of nicked up right now, man. I think that's a real situation for them because, he's been playing good football. Russ been playing good football. Najee Harris been playing good football. The defense come as such. I think that they're in rare form as far as just the identity of their football team. And so the AFC is a real situation across the board. But, I thought that, the Rams from the NFC side, this was a good victory for them. I think Buffalo, definitely want to move forward and still got some good football to play. As like I said, that buying the AFC is still up for grabs. Then we transition, and, this was a game that both these teams are basically season pretty much over with. But I do have to mention, one of them is my Chicago Bears. We traveled, went out to San Francisco to take on the San Francisco 49ers. This is the first game without Matt Eberflus being the head coach, as the Bears, as you know, showed them the dough, treated them like Jazz off First Prince of Bel-Air. I thought, first of all, because this is the first time that I've spoken on this situation, with Eberflus being shown the door, I definitely thought it was time. I thought that this guy was definitely over his head. I just think that at the end of the day, the Bears, I'm just going to keep it real. And I'm not really happy with kind of some of our business being in the national streets, but, it is what it is across the league. I just think that the Bears are devoid of a real leader at the coaching position. And I think I speak for all Chicago Bears fans is that we want a coach with some kind of experience, man. A coach that is tough. Now, I know we got the Ben Johnsons out there and you got the Bradys out there from Buffalo, coordinator. And that's all cool and all. But I definitely thought that the Bears missed an opportunity to at least chop it up with Bill Belichick. I think that Mike Vrabel was another guy that's on the, candidate list for the Chicago Bears. I'm definitely ready to go in that direction. Not saying that I don't think Ben Johnson would be a good head football coach, but he's never been a head football coach before. And so I think the Bears, in my opinion, they should go in the move of Mike Vrabel. But getting into this game, because it was the first game without, Eberflus in the building, so you couldn't blame him for this one, as the Bears got DDT 38-13. I mean, this is one of the most putrid offense output in the first half of any Bear game I've never seen. And we didn't play it in games where, the Fog Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles back in 1990 in the NFC playoffs. I've seen games of inclement weather, snow, rain, you name it, hail. And what I saw this past weekend was a disgrace from a standpoint of this team is simply devoid of a leader. Not devoid of talent, but devoid of a leader, a leadership. And I thought that obviously Thomas Brown stepped in the interim spot, and there's a lot of people up in Chicago feel that Thomas Brown should get a real opportunity to be the head coach. And no disrespect to Thomas Brown, because I'm a guy that remember when Thomas Brown was a running back for the University of Georgia. So, I've known of Thomas Brown, obviously as a football player and, kind of his movements across the NFL. But I just think that we in a position as the Chicago Bears are to turn the page and bring in a guy that's experienced and a guy that can bring some kind of discipline to this football club. And I just don't think that Thomas Brown right now in his career is the guy. No shot at him. I definitely would see potentially if he does well with the offense for the rest of the season, we could bring him back potentially as a coordinator. But I think that, the performance with the Bears coming out there and dropping a dud, going out to Frisco and losing, I think that his opportunity to get a fair look at the head coaching job went out the window last Sunday. So we'll see. The 49ers, they're on life support in the NFC. We'll definitely see what they do moving forward. Brock Purdy had a pretty good game, bounce back game. I don't think that, he's played okay, but I think that he could play better football, and he showed that a little bit against a Bears team that, like I said, walking dead out there, man. So shout out to the Niners, man, banking a win. They keep their hopes alive in the NFC. And then we had a game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. Yeah, I almost said San Diego, the Los Angeles Chargers. And this was a game that I actually thought that the Chargers going into this football game would win this game, actually. I knew it was going to be a close game. I just think that the job that Harbaugh has done out there for the Chargers has been tremendous. And I've been speaking raves about when he took the job out there in Los Angeles for the Chargers, that he's a program builder. He can turn a program around. You see his track record. I mean, he come back into the National Football League as a national championship winning coach. And so I like the temperament of this football team. They came up short. They had definitely every chance to win this game against the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, man, they're just walking on water, man. This team, man, they getting all the breaks, all the championship breaks, all the bounces, all the calls, whatever you want to name it. But this team is 12-1. As I said a little bit earlier, they're not playing their best football. But sometimes as a champion, man, you don't play like a champion all the time, only when it counts. So we'll see if the Chiefs are able to keep this momentum moving forward for the rest of the year, as the AFC and just how that rest of that picture kind of develops itself is definitely my interest. And, I'm going to spit game on it to you guys. So that's my look across the National Football League as we get closer and closer to the playoffs, to the holiday season. We're going to have some more of them snow games, man. I definitely love to see that. And I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate you ear. We on Fire Sports Podcast, the spot. I got my NFL Big Five power rankings across the National Football League as we move into week number 15. And this is my favorite time of the year in the National Football League. You know, now you see the teams that are the contending teams. You see teams that's on life support. Every possession, every game now is meaningful. The weather get, cold and snowy across the NFL. And so this is my favorite time of the year in the NFL season. And I know it's been a minute since I hit y'all with the Big Five NFL Power Rankings, but I got one hot off the press, and we're going to get right into it. At number 5, I got a team that's 11-2 right now, and I think this is a team that has been one of the most underrated 11-2 teams I've seen in my history looking across the National Football League. And I'm talking about the Minnesota Vikings. You know, the job that Kevin O'Connell, the head coach, has done up in Minnesota has been tremendous so far this season. Sam Darnold's looking like what people expected out of Sam Darnold coming out of USC, drafted by the New York Jets a few years ago. And, he's been on a redemption tour. No different than Baker Mayfield last year for the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's been on a redemption tour. I think this team does have balance to it. On the defensive side, you got Brian Flores, defensive coordinator. He'll dial up the blitz in a hot minute. I think they've been playing good as a collective so far this season. We got Aaron Jones. They brought him in to run the Rockies. Had a good season for them. My skepticism about him was really about him being just healthy. And, he's been he had a few little nicks here and there, but overall, for the most part, he's been available for the Minnesota Vikings. We got Justin Jefferson flying high right now. Caught a touchdown pass last week. And so, do I think this team is what I consider a legit, bona fide Super Bowl contender? I'm not ready to go there just yet, but I think that the Minnesota Vikings are a team that for the rest of the season, they can prove me wrong. They can make me change my opinion. And they can skyrocket up these power rankings, man. So we'll see what Minnesota do moving forward. But I definitely like what I've seen so far from Kevin O'Connell and the brain trust up there in Minnesota. And at number 4, this is a team that most would consider a Super Bowl contender coming into this year. I had questions about this team on the offensive side because they had a few key losses on the offensive end. I knew that their quarterback was going to put on the cape each and every week and be virtually indestructible. And I'm talking about the Buffalo Bills at number 4. They're 10-3 so far this season. They just lost in the shootout to the Los Angeles Rams. It was a good football game, one of the most entertaining games of last week. Josh Allen throwing, having 6 touchdowns overall. Man, he been on one the last month. To me, front runner of the NFL MVP right now. Him and Saquon Barkley. And so, do I think that the Bills, because to me, they pass rush is lacking. I think that the defense overall, they've been playing okay as a collective unit during this season, but Von Miller, I think ain't enough tread on the tires for Von Miller. I just think that their pass rush up front is very average, and I think it might come back to burn them in a real situation in the playoffs, man. So we'll see what the Buffalo Bills do moving forward, but definitely, the Josh Allen, he in the clubhouse right now being the MVP of the NFL this season. I just think that they need to, ratchet up on the defense a little bit. And, there's still some question marks about the youngins on the offensive end, the Secures of the world and Coleman's of the world. I think it was huge for them bringing in Amani Cooper. And I think that's an investment that may play off once we get in the playoff situation with the Buffalo Bills. But we'll see what they do moving forward. At number 3, this is a team that they've been screaming all year, put some respect on our name. Because they got the belt right now. 2-time defending world champion Kansas City Chiefs, 12-1 on the year. Definitely been one of the most luckiest football teams I've seen in recent memory. But, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. And at the end of the day, to be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to be able to outplay Patrick Mahomes. You got to play mistake-free football. I think the defense is, not as good as they were last season, but I think it's still a formidable defense. I just think that at the end of the day, you still got Spagnuolo over there as the defensive coordinator. You got Chris Jones. The secondary been playing pretty well so far this season, and so I think for them, obviously they've had a million injuries going back to the earlier part of the year, but I think that with Pacheco coming back, I think that's a huge addition, and it gives them a little bit more balance on the offensive end. I like what I'm seeing from Noah Gray, the other tight end out there in Kansas City. He's been playing some good ball the last couple of weeks. And so we'll see what Andy Reid do, man. I definitely can't count out a champion. The only reason I ain't got him in the number one slot, because I think at the end of the day, the best football may be in front of them. And at number two, this is a team that has always found themselves being in the news, but this team wins football games. And they've been consistently winning football games the last couple of years. The head coach, Nick Sirianni, and I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles in at number two. The situation with him and the fans and just that whole ordeal early part of the year. And I was one of the people in the forefront of this team is a Super Bowl caliber team. And that with them bringing in Saquon Barkley, they upped the ante on the offensive end. Now, I definitely do agree with the whole controversy, quote unquote, fake controversy, however you want to label it, between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I actually felt what A.J. Brown was on, because at the end of the day, Jalen Hurts, you're not going to be able to beat teams, man, throwing the ball 15 times a game when you get in the NFL playoffs. I mean, Saquon Barkley is definitely, he might break Eric Dickerson's all-time record, and it definitely will be a big-time feat if he's able to pull that off. And I still think the door's a little bit open for him to win an NFL MVP. But at the end of the day, it's all about matchups, man, when you get into the playoffs. And I just think that Saquon Barkley is not going to be able to go out there and give you a $150 a game in the playoffs. So you're going to be able to have to throw the football. They definitely got the talent with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And so I just think that they need to ratchet up the passing game a little bit, because I think they've been a little bit one-dimensional. And, the schedule that they've had and the defenses that they played, they haven't been top tier the last month or so. So when you get against a real football club, man, you're going to have to be able to throw the football. Looks like word on the street, Hurts came out with a statement a little bit earlier just saying, everything is good between those two. We definitely see what it do moving forward for the Philadelphia Eagles, man. But I got them coming in at number two. And at number one, all I'm going to say is, what up, though? Detroit stand up, man. I got the Detroit Lions, man, coming in at number one. They 12-1 on the year. They had an outstanding good football game last Thursday against the Green Bay Packers. And I just think this is the most balanced team in the National Football League. Now, do I feel like they have the most talent on the offensive side of the football in the National Football League? No, I don't. But I just think that their offense is so balanced, with the two backs, Montgomery and Gibbs. You got Jared Goff playing good football. I'm not saying you're an MVP candidate, good football. And so I just think with this team, Dan Campbell, one of the most polarizing coaches across the National Football League, this team is taking on the personality of Dan Campbell. And I just think that this team is tough. I think this team got a sour taste in their mouth for what happened last year in the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. And so I think that they've done a good job of being able to leverage that, get it a little bit better, get it a little bit more into their identity. And right now they're playing the best football across the whole National Football League right now. So I got the Detroit Lions coming in at number one. We'll definitely see what they do moving forward. And so that's my look, man. That's my NFL Big Five power rankings across the NFL season. And like I said, this is the best time of the year across the NFL, because right now you got some teams on life support. And you got some teams that's, moving on up, man, getting into my power rankings, and definitely Super Bowl contenders and having an opportunity to bring home the Vince Lombardi trophy at the end of the season. And so that's my look across the NFL Big Five power rankings. Before I get out of here, man, this is a couple housekeeping things, couple things that came across the sports desk and want to get into. And switch gears into the National Basketball Association, the NBA. And there's word on the street is that the Miami Heat are potentially shopping Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler saying, I ain't got an issue with that. Yeah, I think that we've seen the last of Jimmy Butler in Miami. I kind of seen this coming to a head from a standpoint of, at the end of the day, I just think that it's all about with Jimmy Butler's his availability. And I think Pat Riley is a guy that, old school guy. He's one of my favorite people across all the sports. And, most people know him as the godfather in the NBA, man. And, Pat Riley, that's anti, what he about. That's anti what he coaches about. And I'm not saying it from a shot at Jimmy Butler. But at the end of the day, you kind of fall into the bucket of how people really feel in the NBA about these dudes making a huge big bag of money and these guys are not being available. And at the end of the day, one, you losing fans because the NBA ratings have been in the dumps so far this season, which is something that if you guys get down and rock with me, I've foreseen all of this from a viewpoint of, at the end of the day, one thing that the NFL has advantage over the NBA is that it's a shorter schedule and you generally know what day and time the games come on, and it's always going to be a good matchup. And in the NBA, they guys, it might be a good matchup on paper. You turn the game on and this dude unavailable, not playing. And so I just think that the whole situation in Miami is coming to a head. I think, Butler's going to be on his way out the door. Word on the street is, he got a target list about the Suns. And I just think that it's just a straight diva move. At the end of the day, the Suns are the Suns. I mean, they got their whole little big three situation going on, with Bill and, KD. Obviously, KD a little nicked up. Hope he able to get back on the court soon for KD. Book out there. And so I just think right now with JB and Jimmy Butler, he's a guy my Chicago Bulls drafted out of Marquette. He's a guy that I seen him work hard and grind and turn himself into Jimmy Butler. So, Jimmy gonna always, have a special place for me, man, because I seen this guy get it out the mud, man, and become a superstar in the NBA. A lot of people didn't predict that. I was glad my Bulls gave him his first opportunity in the league, but I think he on diva mode now. And I just think that Pat fed up with that. And I think at the end of the day, Pat know that the Miami Heat, for them to be, considered or have an opportunity to win another championship, is what Pat Riley wants real badly down there in Miami, is that, he thinking about hustle moves and making his team better. So we'll see what it do with that situation down there. Like I said, we got the college football playoff coming up. My next show, I'm definitely going to get more into the matchups and so forth. But, overall, I like the whole situation with the college football playoffs. As I said earlier, I think that Alabama shouldn't have made the college football playoff. I was down with, the selection overall. You could have definitely changed, how the seeding is and, the buys and things like that. But, it's the first go round, man. It's not going to be perfect, the first incarnation of it. But overall, as a whole, man, I think it's good for college football. Obviously, I got into it earlier. Bill Belichick joining the fray in college football. Looks like he's going to accept the head coaching job at the University of North Carolina. And so definitely the college football landscape, you had Saban retire. A lot of people thought it was going to, die down a little bit. But, man, in the last 3 years, you got Deion Sanders and Bill Belichick going down to college football. So it's definitely an entity of professional sports right now with college football. I'm loving it, soaking it all in. So we'll see what that thing do. And first of all, man, you can definitely check us out on YouTube, man, at We On Fire Sports. We definitely on there. We definitely loving the feedback that we've been getting so far. So I really, truly appreciate you guys' ear. Hope you guys have a good holiday season. I'm definitely going to check back in before we get into the official holidays. See, what's cracking across the sporting landscape. We On Fire Sports Podcast Spot.